Hey guys, I'm going to show you how I check the oil in my Formula Vee, and I recommend that you do it this way, but there's lots of different ways to do it. People have lots of different opinions on it, so talk to your engine builder and figure out what's best for you. But let's get into it. Alright, so the first thing we should look at when we're checking our oil is our dipstick. So this is a Volkswagen dipstick with some extra marks on it. I hope you guys can see that. Yeah, so there's two lines. Here is the factory bottom line, low. Here is the factory top line of full. And then here are some additional lines that were made on this dipstick. This top line, very top line, is, to me, is where I like to see the oil level, approximately just below this when the engine is off. And when it's running, this was an ideal spot at one time. But since then, I have figured out that this engine actually likes to run this just about a quarter inch above this factory full line, somewhere in between a quarter inch and halfway between these two lines. So basically, if I'm halfway between these two lines or above the factory line, that's where I'm looking for that. This would be what I'd consider a low line, and then a high line would be halfway, and that's running. I like this not running reference mark, so we can get a good idea where we're at before we start the engine. And then running at a low idle, we want it about here. So let's see what we got. I just changed the oil in this. I put in about 4 quarts. And you can see we're here. So like I said, I like to be a little bit below this top line with the engine off. And we're going to try to hit that mark. And one of the important things to do when you're checking oil, especially in the trailer like I am today, is make sure the car is level. So what I use, it's like an RV level that's just stuck on the chassis, and that's there all the time, so I can kind of make sure that the car is level. So let's start this up. Let's let it warm up a little bit, because we want to make sure that the oil flows into the filter, into the oil cooler, and splashes around everywhere it's going to splash around on, just like we would on a racetrack. And then we're going to check the oil level with it running, because that's the most important thing. Everybody has a different oiling system, so some coolers are larger and smaller, some oil filters are larger and smaller, and right now more or less this oil filter is empty. The oil cooler should have oil in it from last time it was running, but with your setup you don't know if it drains, so you want to make sure that it's running and running for a few minutes and everything is filled up. So let's start it up. So I've moved the camera over to the side here so we don't get too much vibration from the car. And we're going to turn the power on. And we're going to fire this puppy up. Let it run for a little bit, check the oil level. I think we're going to read high right now. Now look at that, the dipstick's reading all the way up to the top. The oil's just splashing around everywhere in there. Let it warm up for another second here. Okay, so we're almost to that factory full mark. factory full mark. So you're getting inconsistent readings. You got to let the oil move around and rev it up a few times. So now we're getting pretty consistent readings. Okay. So as you can see, we were getting really inconsistent readings at first because the oil was still sloshing around and not really filled up everything. So we revved it up a few times, gave the engine a little bit more time to warm itself up, and then we were getting really consistent readings. So we're just below that factory full mark right now. And I know that this car is leaning just a little bit this way. So being a little bit above that is where we want to be. So let's add some oil. Again, everybody does this differently. Everybody has an opinion on it, but there's been some confusion lately. A few people have asked me about it, so I figured I'd make this video. Grab my phone. And we're using VR1 full synthetic. This is a oil my engine builder Chris Cox recommends, and I was using it when I first started Formula Vee racing. I think it's really good stuff. Maybe 1/8 of a quart. Back on. And we're going to start it back up. So obviously that wasn't enough oil, but you can see what one of the pitfalls is that I'd like everybody to be aware of is how the engine can have inconsistent readings. So you need to really let the engine warm up, rev it up a little bit, get the oil sloshed around, and keep checking the dipstick until you're getting consistent readings like I am. Because if you only check it once or twice, you might be reading a high level and you might think you're all set, and you're really not. So you really got to make sure that you're getting the right level. But you really want to make sure, this is the most important thing in Formula Vee racing, to keep your engine healthy and alive, is to make sure you have this oil level right with the engine running. And again, everybody's oiling system is different. Filters can be extremely large and take a ton of oil out of your system. So just having it to the full line when it's off is not good enough. So I'm going to add a little bit more oil to this, but that should give you guys an idea of what you should be looking for. And if you're confused, just call your engine builder. They'll tell you exactly what to do. Making sure that you have a consistent reading over and over and over again when you're checking it is a very important thing. Alright guys, I've added some oil and we're going to see if we're in the right area where I want to be now. Perfect.